Yo, what's up, guys? So, I wanted to talk about Blue Protocol Star Resonance today. I had a couple of questions on one of my previous videos talking about how life skilling works. And so, I wanted to just briefly kind of explain some of the information that I discovered through, just checking stuff out on life skilling during the closed beta test because it might not work the way that you think it does. And so, to just kind of jump right into it, something that came up and as a comment on my previous video was that there's no social aspect of life skilling because everything that you do is like solo self-bound, and that's not actually true. So that is a misunderstanding about how the system works, but it's also kind of understandable because, to be honest, it is kind of a weird system that doesn't really make a ton of sense. But I promise when we get into it and like look at it a little bit deeper, it's not as bad as it might seem. Okay, so really quickly, I just kind of want to go over this idea that there are two different types of both materials and life skilling that you can do. And the idea is the same as what you're seeing right here in front of you. There's focused life skilling, which is what you see highlighted right here. And then there's just regular gathering. So what that is that's actually two separate things that you can gather from the same node. So these are both from this emerald node right here. And so what I do depends on what I get. And so focused actually causes you to use life skill energy and gives significantly more XP towards your crafting profession. But the regular gathering can be done without any life skill energy and just gives very minimal experience. So to kind of really emphasize that and really show that off, I really wanted to show you guys this. So this is an example of that exact node on what you get for using your focus energy over here on the left and what you get using the regular gathering over here on the right. So as you can see, you get entirely different materials except for this derived pigment, right? That's the only thing it has in common, and the gemology experience. But notice how it's so much more experience over here when you use life skill energy. And again, this is for one node. So the starlight emeralds that you're seeing over here, now all of these materials can be used in a way that allows you to sell them, right? So think of doing stuff and putting it on the auction house or whatever. You can also just straight up sell these materials in general. Now I do believe this pigment isn't sellable, so not everything is. However, the point here being the big thing that you're going for from an emerald node is likely the emerald gems, right? That is sellable here over on the left, but this raw emerald ore is not. So again, they're two separate sections of how each profession works, and one can be interacted with on the auction house and the other doesn't. They do different things. So for example, when you're using these gems, the focused version, using energy, you can actually create gems that you can put into gear. Now for the regular gathering and these gems here, you can actually use it to make your own gear. But the point being is that you definitely will be interacting with the auction house to get these focus materials over here on the left. So to further drive this home, again, this is actually what the UI looks like for the actual crafting profession for gem cutting or whatever. And so over here we have the focus tab and then the regular tab. So the focus tab is going to be the gems that you can actually buy and sell on the marketplace. And you're going to see there are all these different gems, and each color represents a different thing. So for example, grants the gear some mastery attributes and provides a certain strength boost. The reason for that is because it's a cut gem that's cut into this shape. Again, this is going to be the way that this profession is going to interact with the auction house. Now, if I go to the regular tab, you will see an entirely different set of materials and gems, right? And the reason why is because these are materials and gems that you can get from Gemcrafting for no life skill energy, and these do not interact with the auction house at all. So it's going to depend on what you're looking for, but the thing is that every single one of these professions has a very, very long list. Like look at Gemcrafting level 24. Now if you look at these numbers, right, at level 1 it requires 2000 XP to increase to level 2. And if you were looking earlier when we did the gem mining, we saw that if you don't use life energy, you get 2 experience, which means you will need 1,000 nodes from level 1 to level 2. And if you do use life energy, you will get 99. So it will be significantly easier and better for you to focus on that. But the thing is that even then, it's still going to require you a lot of gathering and a lot of crafting in order to level these up. And as you can see, like level 24 isn't even the peak here. There's still a lot more things you can craft at like level 30, level 40, etc. And so you're going to need a lot of life skill energy, which is part of the reason why I'm also recommending you do alts, because life skill energy is tied to the character. You can see that up here, and the way that the energy works isn't exactly how you think either. You actually don't get like 2,000 a day. So I tried to go back and look, and I'm pretty sure based on my footage that we got about 400 of the life skill energy per day. So again, kind of going back and looking at it, when you're spending that life skill energy in each time you do a node, for example, you're spending, 20 life skill energy for 99 experience with only 400 life skill experience per day. So as you can see, it's going to take you a little while to level up. And actually, the best way to level up is to do your like weekly professions quests where you get like 7,200 XP, so several levels worth of XP for that profession. So that's definitely going to be important. Another thing that's really worth noting, and part of the reason why I think there's going to be a lot of depth to this, and it's going to include part of the social aspect, is the talent system. So the way this game works is there is a talent system for every single one of these. And what it does is it makes it so that way you're more proficient at doing some tasks. So whether you're getting more materials or better procs of making more stuff or whatever, the better you are at these different, talents or whatever, you're going to make better stuff, right? So it's pretty much what it sounds like. The thing about that I think is going to be really cool and really interesting is there's probably going to be people who specialize in specific stuff. There's also like a level of time gating behind these, because you don't get these talent points that often. You get them for every 300, I believe, energy that you spend. And then once you use them, they're locked into that one profession. So you're not going to be able to unlock everything in every profession, at least not very easily, and it will take you significant amounts of time. But also some of these nodes in the talent trees, what you're seeing here for this Ruby Pro and this Ruby Master, for example, these second tier nodes are also locked behind a time gate. I believe it was like a week, and I believe this is like 3 weeks or something like that. So pretty close. So don't take those with a grain of salt. It's not exact. The point being is that they're going to be time gated. You're not going to be able to get access at least to this stuff very easily, very early on. And so I think what's going to happen is in the crafting community, people are going to pick a thing that they want to specialize in, and they're going to try and do like, I'm going to be the gemology guy, for example. And so I'm going to use my limited amount of talent points in making it so that way I can do all these different gathering. Now, to be fair, there's also going to be some of them that everyone probably needs to do at the very beginning. And if you're a part of the Blue Protocol Discord, somebody has actually made a very nice guide. So if you go over to the Blue Protocol Discord and you look at the guide here, I believe the one that they created was like one of the very first ones. So this one right here, this Life Skills Early Profession Help for Gear / Slots / Gems by Proud. I believe is the person who did it. Yeah. So this is a really, really, really good guide. I highly recommend you guys go over here, and genuinely, once you join the Discord, like +1 this shit, they put on some really, really good important stuff in this guide. But basically, this is the idea that like realistically, you're gonna want some things. I highly recommend everyone go and look specifically at the early gear guide. So you can go into the early gem guides and stuff like that, but the thing is that the early gear guide is really gonna be important because it's gonna help you make some of the things that you need to actually refine your gear. So this is what the refinement looks like in this. So the refinement is gonna be your honing in this game, and so these materials here, there's a couple of different pieces. Like every third piece is a different type, and they're made using your crafting material. materials. So you can actually get this stuff via the auction house, but it's probably going to be pretty limited, especially right off the bat. So if you're going to be looking at trying to push your character in the game and push them further early, you're going to really want to be able to make some of this gear, and that early gear guide is going to help you get access to these materials a lot easier. So yeah, definitely take a look at that. And like I said, there's not a lot of them that you can actually get inside the game, so you need to be crafting these or buying them. And you know, we didn't get a lot of unbound Lunos to buy the like materials and stuff like that on the auction house, so maybe there'll be more of that when you actually get into the game. But I highly recommend you at least start there for your first day. At least your first couple of days will probably be done using these. You need about 1400 stamina, and then extra stamina for more of the materials and stuff like that. But the point being, like I said, is that this is going to be really valuable in how you get into the honing early game. And I didn't find any other way in the game to get access to that material. You do occasionally get them from like, you know, some introductory quests and stuff like that, but it did seem very limited. You know, maybe they'll be more generous when the actual launch of the game comes. I don't really know, but I think that you're going to want to at least spend your first couple of days doing this. So what that means is that the first couple of talent points that people have is going to be you know, spent on getting this early setup, and so they're not going to have the ability to go into those trees right away. One kind of cool thing about the way that this works though is that your focus stuff is straight to focus stuff. So if you do want something in here, you do know like that's how you're going to get it. All these materials and stuff like that are from the focused drops and everything. Though you may have noticed that if you're actually looking at this, using our focus material for gemology specifically, we can actually convert the focus drops into the regular drops. So if we go back to our OneNote, you can see this raw ore of emerald was from regular gathering, but it is something that you can actually focus if you wanted to. Now that's just something I didn't really catch when I was playing, and so I didn't really get a chance to try it out, but I think it's going to be pretty obvious the way that it works, and it does cost the extra energy down here, so you will get more of that XP and stuff too. For the most part, when you do want something, you'll be able to obtain it via the same track. So if you are trying to do something that you see in the focus, it likely takes focus materials. And if you see something in the regular, it's going to take regular materials that you don't get from focus stuff. But, you know, maybe there will be times like this where you can translate the focus materials into regular materials. And so another thing you can do is if you need materials, you can actually just click on this and it will open a button for you to like track it or whatever. And you can even navigate to it a lot of times to get to where you need. So it's kind of like, you know, pretty cool that you can have like a little automated system that will help you get to the drop that you need. And just, you know, it will literally run you there. It will teleport you to the correct map or correct area and then like get on your mount and run you all the way there. Okay, so what we're seeing now, so this is the mystery metal down here in the bottom right that you're going to be crafting, doing some of this early game stuff. And that's actually used for these first 3 pieces here. And so of them, like the weapon in particular does give you more damage, and so it's definitely going to be worth it if you're needing or wanting to push further on early on. And then as you go further down, you'll see when we get to gauntlets, it changes to a different material here between gauntlets, boots, and earring. And then once we go a little bit further with like necklace and ring and bracelet and like talisman and stuff, I believe they take another material down there, and there's kind of just one in each section that does give you more damage, where some of them just give you more armor and stamina. You know, that will be important for some classes, but most people are probably going to try and chase that damage first. But you do need the kind of whole variety of them. So it's going to be something that you definitely will want to be able to craft early on, which is part of the reason why I recommend, you know, following that guide on to doing the early gear crafting stuff. It will just help set you up so you can craft this on your own, and then you can do your daily farm every day with your life energy energy and make more of this material to continue refining your gear. And in general too, I really don't think you guys are going to want to be doing this off the auction house. This kind of stuff early game always ends up being like people just put it up for whales to buy, and you probably can make a decent amount of money on this at first too if you're not trying to push. I'm gonna make a more full guide on how I'm going to start this process, but anyway, the point being is that like it's gonna be good to get this kind of setup on any character that you're going to be playing in those early days. Hopefully this kind of gave you guys a decent overview of, you know, how the life skill system works. In general, I think it's kind of an interesting system. It definitely time gates things, but it also makes it so that way bots can't just come into the game and infinitely farm and make a lot of profit. So it does reward players for playing more long term, which I think is good too, and kind of gives people something that they can chase even for those crafting professions. You know, a lot of games, they don't really have a lot of depth to crafting, and in a weird way, this kind of time gating does. You definitely can just sit there and grind out infinite levels with, you know, 2 XP per node with no energy if you really want to. I really am not recommending that. It's just not going to be very efficient for your use of time, but you can do it if you really want to. So just going to be something to keep in mind too. And also remember too that the extra talent points are tied to the actual life skill energy usage, not the just life skill XP. So if you are looking to kind of push those professions, realize you're just going to be time gated by that life skill energy to some degree, no matter what. I think overall it's a pretty good system for doing the kind of goals that they're trying to do. I really wish that they maybe wouldn't time gate it so heavily. I feel like a lot of the time gating puts a little bit of a bummer back into the gameplay loop. Hopefully this is going to be something that just, you know, gets a little bit lighter over time. There still will be the limitations on how much energy you can use per day, but again, I think they're kind of trying to limit everything. They're trying to limit how much bots have effect on their economy. I think they're trying to maybe even make, you know, people early on more encouraged to maybe swipe because those materials are probably going to be incredibly expensive, because that's, you know, usually the way that it works. If you ever play like Lost Ark on launch or whatever, there was like, you know, back in the day people were paying like 200 gold per leapstone back in the Argos days or whatever. So you have like a bunch of whales that just swipe and want to get to the end game faster, and a bunch of people that are just going to profit off of it. So that is going to be an option for you if that's something that you want to do. But yeah, hopefully this gave you a relatively good idea about how the system works, the kind of materials that work. And again, really, I want to harp back on this. Don't forget that there is a big difference between these two types of systems, whether it's focused that uses the life energy, or it's just regular gathering that does not use the life energy. And you can get really cool stuff from both. You genuinely can. You can craft, you know, legendary gear like yellow gear and everything like that using the non-energy stuff. But then there's going to be a lot of stuff that people need from their focus energy, and so that's really going to be something that you'll want to try and min-max for sure. Anyway, if you guys like this video, give a like down below. If you have a question or want to add a comment, you know, feel free to comment down below. I'm always checking that stuff and seeing what you guys do have to say. You know, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff and help support me. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Peace out, guys.